What's up, YouTubers? It's me, Johnny. I want to make a short video, or maybe a long one, tonight, talking about some of the things. There's a lot of shit going on in the world today, and I don't really have an answer on why stuff is happening the way it is, but it is. Just an example. It was in the news, but I'm not sure. Because stuff is in the news doesn't necessarily mean it's true. That's all I'm saying. Anyways, it was in the news today that Jack Mallers is in Argentina. Jack Mallers is a guy who's making, okay, this is my limited understanding of it. Jack Mallers is making, I think he's a guy who heads up Strike, and he was previously in El Salvador making software technology for like an app for a phone so you can use Bitcoin to transfer money from point A to point B for basically no fees or very little fees. Not like $4 or $2 or $3 or $10 or whatever, but for either pennies or less than a penny. Anyways, he had tweeted out a tweet today that he's in Argentina doing stuff down there to make an app. I think an app, I'm not sure. So you can live, work, and play on Bitcoin, earn Bitcoin, transfer Bitcoin, save money in Bitcoin with an app in Argentina, or an app that specializes for users in Argentina, something like that. All these things are very complicated, and I'm not claiming it's not, and I'm not even claiming I really understand everything correctly. So leave a comment if your understanding is different than mine. Anyways, with that tweet, he was talking about the inflation, the devaluation of the Argentine peso, if that's what they have, but their currency down there against the US dollar, and yada, yada, yada. Well, today, I think it was in the Wall Street Journal, maybe, or maybe it was in another media outlet. They're back to now, I don't want to say exchange controls, but there's always been exchange controls, but you can now only get $200 a month in US dollars or exchange local currencies up to $200 a month. They had previously been, I think, 1,000 or so, or 10,000, and then 1,000. Now I think it's $200, if I understand everything right. So that to me signals there's going to be a macro event in the economy or a crisis. And that's just one point. Today, Turkey just announced that they're asking companies to voluntarily give them 25% of their foreign exchange currency or their dollars. I think soon they won't even be asking, and there will be exchange controls in Turkey. My point is, Turkey is a much bigger economy in the world economy compared to Argentina. And my point of all this is we're getting closer and closer to an emerging market event where the dollar just whacks up really high. And the ECB and the US Central Bank and possibly the Japanese Central Bank will have to intervene to calm markets down and probably bail people out behind the scenes without really saying much about it. So we're hearing news in the United States that because inflation is so high, the U.S. Central Bank's going to raise interest rates and stop tapering. I think they're going to slow down the taper, and they might even raise interest rates, but I kind of doubt it because of the recent job numbers that came out. The job numbers in the U.S. aren't so good. The economy in Europe is not so good. And what we're seeing is just them announcing they're going to slow down the taper and possibly raise interest rates. Markets have really come down hard, especially cryptocurrencies. I think that will have the effect that it could cause an emerging market event where somewhere, probably Turkey, maybe Argentina, but Argentina too has been in the news like they're not going to pay down their debts, like there's going to be another debt default. That could reverberate through the economy, causing another debt crisis, which would cause the dollar to rally, which would cause all kinds of chaos, which would probably cause a big bank in Europe. I'm thinking the big Spanish bank, BBVA, I think it is. They have a shit ton of exposure to Turkey. They have a lot of exposure to Turkey. And if they were to I don't know what their obligations would be to other European banks and U.S. banks, but if they were to go down, that could cause a crisis. And if I had to guess, they'll get bailed out by the EU behind the scenes and or the U.S. federal bank, but behind the scenes, not officially. It wouldn't be in the press. So I've been saying recently how you could expect Latin American currencies to keep melting down against the dollar. Now, recently, the Mexican peso, even the Peruvian sol, the Colombian peso have been kind of rallying against her a little bit. And I say a little bit, not that much. Well, I think over a long period of time, there's going to be more Latin American crises where currencies are going to melt down against the dollar. So that's why I rant and rave about holding dollars. And, if you want to hold your dollars in stable coins or in offshore banks, the trouble with offshore banks is they're centralized and you can have your account frozen and whatever. I'll get into that later on in the video. But that's why it's important to hold Bitcoin and gold, depending on your views on things. But believe it or not, even though some people are saying gold's being demonetized, it still can get you out of a lot of jams in Latin America and in Asia, at least in my experience. And that leads me to another subject. There's a YouTuber that's not super popular. He's a young person. He makes videos on how to create LLCs in the United States and become invisible. I just can't think of his name and what his channel's called, but he's in how to make your life more private. He's also into, he's a poker player, has been, and he has another business. I forget what it's related to, but how to make your life more private. He has interest in gambling, and I forget if he said or if he didn't say, but he has other interests too. But he mainly has a channel on privacy and how in this digital age, if you don't have privacy, you're gonna. It's a really dark. His latest video, which I would post in the comments, but I can't find it. But it's a really dark video. It's a video about how there's no more privacy for your phones. He's made a lot of videos on how when he travels, he puts his phones and laptops and computers into a Faraday bag and why that's important. I actually agree with that. There's a lot of reasons I agree with that. You're thinking, well, who cares if the U.S. government or corporations know where you travel? Well, in the future, it's going to be really important because in the future, if there's digital bank central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, they can shut your account out for anything, for traveling overseas, for spending too much money on cigarettes, spending too much money on booze, for traveling too much on an airplane. There's actually been talk about that in the news media. And I'm getting to the point. Sometimes it takes me a while to get to the point. But for people who think all these QR codes and things are not really dangerous to your privacy and it's going to make everything go swimmingly well in your life, it's really not. And again, long-term, my views is it's not going to work. And so you're going to see the world divide into places where you don't need QR codes to live, work, and play, and places where you're going to need it. And how, depending on what you want to do, it might be wise to keep some of your wealth and register your toys into an LLC. Like this young guy, he all his phones are registered to LLCs, which he does not own and not in his name. And again, these are U.S. LLCs. So people who kind of bicker with me about you can't do it, you can't be private. Well, yeah, if you have a 3-letter agency on your ass, that's true. But as far as average corporate America, you can have an LLC not in your name. You can have bank accounts not in your name, and fine if you want to do. That's cool with me. That's beyond the scope of this video. But he does it. He's not the only one that does it. I want to think of who it is. How to Be Invisible. JJ Luna. He's been talking about this for years. I mean, for years. This young guy, I can't think of his name, but he helps people disappear all over the world from Latin America to Europe. But he mostly suggests, I just got an alert on my tablet for FTM, which is going up. FTM is a cryptocurrency that's probably going to go through its all-time highs. It's getting ready to do another pump. So, but anyways, you probably get an idea of what some of my assets are. Anyways, getting back to the subject at hand. Anyways, this guy talks about how you can do all that, how he has his phones, computers, everything, bills registered in LLC to stay invisible. There's a lot of reasons why that's going to be important. A lot of people think, oh, no, the government's knowing where you live, work, and play. That's not going to be important. They're not going to use that information against you. Well, I finally have an acquaintance. He has a channel called Geopolitics. I don't know his real name, but he used to live in Kazakhstan. He has a Mexican passport, he has a US passport, and he has a passport in Eastern Europe. Now, you're probably thinking that's a weird way to screen people. Yeah, it is. But anyways, he's also a Christian. He decided to leave the States and bug out for Mexico, even though there's problems in Mexico. Anyways, he just made a video because there's a lot of chaos going on in Kazakhstan, kind of explaining what's going on, what he thinks is going on, and what's being portrayed in the press may not be actually what's going on behind the scenes. He made an interesting point I want to point out about QR codes. So for people who think QR codes are cool and it's going to make your life easy, it's not. For people who think giving up all your privacy, financial privacy, personal privacy is going to be good for you and it's going to help you increase your freedom and liberty, it's really not. He made an observation that I'm kind of surprised. But because he used to live in Kazakhstan and he has those contacts, he made this observation and point in his last video or his latest video. It's geopolitics and something else. I forget what else. Anyways, he pointed out governments are using QR codes and that information on the QR codes, the software. They're taking that information and then they're comparing it to your taxes. Let me get to the point. So if you're a business in Kazakhstan, they're looking at all the people from the QR code data that went into your business, and then they're comparing that to whatever taxes you're paying. They're saying, hey, there's a discrepancy. And just because someone goes into your business does not mean they bought something. But nevertheless, they're saying, hey, look, 10 people went in your business. You reported this much money in income. There's a discrepancy. You now got a problem with us. You know, I say in my videos, like a lot of your private information in Mexico or Latin America in general is not private. This information is shared with the government because you reported your income, you reported your foreign source income because you're a good Boy Scout, and you reported all this stuff. This is in the government computers in Mexico or Guatemala or wherever if you do not use LLCs and SA corporations. Again, I just want to point that out. Well, this information is shared with other agencies to make sure you're paying out all your taxes, you complying. You should say, okay, Johnny, but I don't care about that. I'm complying. Some of you are, some of you aren't. I'm just pointing out. If you're not, this is going to come and bite you in the ass because all this information is being, not all, much of this information will be shared with world governments, not all, but some. And also, too, I would just make the point that governments and cartels and criminal organizations, it's a very gray area and they meld. And there's been cases in the United States where, like, I'll just use the term mafia type people and government employees and mafia type people came together to go into government databases and take advantage of that. That's all I'm going to say. And there's been news articles about that, especially in Las Vegas. And that information is used to rob people, kidnap people, and things like that. Now, if you don't think certain organizations aren't in the U.S., you're kind of naive. That information is used to kidnap people, to blackmail people, and stuff like that. So as an expat coming to Latin America, if you're very, very transparent, that's cool and good, and you might think that. But the reason why I try to add a little different information is because that information can be, I'm not saying it, but it can be used against you. Okay, I want to make another point that's not really going to be cool. Some people are going to not like this. One of my relatives used to work in the State Department. I've said it, my relative worked in the State Department. For those of you who don't know, one part of the State Department is issuances of passports. This relative of mine worked away up pretty high. And I made a point, well, I won't make it here, but I made a point how you shouldn't trust everyone in the State Department. And you shouldn't assume all your information is being is private and not being used in a bad way. Anyways, this relative of mine just made the point that a lot of people in the State Department, if you give them a little bit of money and your documents aren't right, they'll make sure your documents are right. They will make sure your documents are good enough so you can get residence in the U.S. and eventually gain a U.S. passport. I would also point out this relative of mine has also said, if you think your personal information is not shared with other government agencies, you're naive. And if you think your information is not being sold to other private criminal delinquency organizations, I'm not going to say it, but you just kind of think outside the box. But if you think that some government employees are not selling your information, you're very naive. Anyways, I'll just let it go at that. And we're just going into a world where, like, if you don't think things through and have other plans for how to survive all this chaos. Now, again, my view is over a long period of time, this won't work, and there'll just be two worlds. The world where there's going to be, you can live in, or it won't matter what your documents are or your QR codes. It really won't matter. And then there'll be the world where that shit matters and you're going to have that shit together. Just like people talk about how you can get fake COVID cards. That's true, but eventually it's going to get to the point where you won't even be able to get that. It's just going to buy you some time if that's what you're thinking. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just making that observation that eventually, with QR codes, with cryptocurrency, and it's not private, it's very, very trackable. I just want to put that out there too. That's why I say, like, if you trade in cryptocurrencies, eventually, like say you buy a hard wallet in the US, you pay for it with your ATM card, your credit card, but they have your real name. You buy your cryptocurrency on Coinbase, they have all your IDs that you bought it. They can make the assumption that you're going to send it to this hard wallet. So maybe technically speaking, the hard wallet is private, but they can assume that's you. And then you go and send that cryptocurrency to other places. They can kind of figure all that out. So, like, eventually, if you want to have some plausibility of denial, you have to sell that cryptocurrency to a lawyer in Latin America and Asia, an accountant, a friend, accomplice, whatever, just not a U.S. citizen, and then get paid in a way that's very discreet. Anyways, I'm not giving legal advice or accounting advice or anything. I'm just pointing out how, like, if you want to regain your privacy, you have to really, really think things, think things through, so shit don't come back to bite you in the ass. And then you also have to think about probabilities. In general, if you're saying, oh, this shit ain't going to come bite me in the ass because there are so many people doing this, that is true. But if you're the one that's the low-hanging fruit, you're going to be the one getting, having problems with whatever government agency or that, wherever you come from or wherever you hail from, that's unique to you. Anyways, kind of getting off topic, but anyways, I just want to point out that I just saw that video from Geopolitics and I was kind of surprised. Actually, I wasn't surprised. I've been waiting for this to come out so I can give viewers real live examples where you put everything online, you use your QR codes. If you think the government's not using that information against you, you're really, really naive. And if you think, oh, I have nothing to hide, I report everything. Well, if you ever become a dissident or you ever piss someone off, that information is not going to be used in a good way. And if you think you're going to be in a court of law, like with, what's it called? The rule of law is escaping me in the United States and in the United Kingdom. Anyways, but if you think you're getting a fair trial and all that, probably you're not. And this video isn't how to get around all that or like how to have a plan B. It's just to put ideas into your head how this could go really, really bad. And if you can't get from point A to point B to readjust to all this, you're going to have a problem. Like, there's going to be a short time in the history of all this. Whereas if you can get from point A to point B to restart your life somewhere else, stay off the grid, stay off the radar. Excuse me, I got to get some water. Your life could become more difficult. Now, the lining in the cloud is, I don't think this is going to ultimately work. I think there's going to be technological solutions to some of this stuff, maybe not all of it, to a lot of it, but getting from here to there, there's going to be big problems. And until we get the solutions and more develop, see how these things develop, it will pay you to keep a low profile. In my previous year, I made a video about this one young lady, Alina, who she has a website selling or how to get second passports and all that. She seems to be aligned with, what's his name? Nomad Capitalist. But what I did not say in that video is, if you watch her video, she was pointing out how she didn't want to make any more videos in public, especially in Santa Marta. And she didn't really want to say why. She said, yeah, a little bit, yeah, because I'm afraid of what happened to me. But she is starting to find out what a lot of these YouTubers who make a lot of videos in public will happen to you if you're too much of a celebrity, too much of a high profile. I thought she was alluding to it. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. But there's more and more YouTubers, well, one or two that I know of, who have made it plain that certain places they don't want to whip out their cameras anymore because it's too much trouble, because they've become too high profile and they've become a target. Anyways, I'll just leave you with that. Stay safe. Like, share, leave a comment. And also, what I'm looking at is leave comments on where you think this is all going, and what you think is a good way to manage this kind of risk, stuff like that, how to deal with it. Anyways, I'm going to upload this and see what comments come in on this.